I've made a few different watches on my channel over the years, inspired by things that I enjoy like Fallout, GoldenEye, Star Wars, each with their own unique features that are a functional electronic device. But there is one ultimate watch idea that has been at the top of my list for a very long time. That is the iconic Metal Gear Solid Codec from the 1998 PlayStation 1 game. Although it first appeared in the 1987 Metal Gear game, it resembled a basic ham radio style transmitter and receiver with different frequencies. The communicator got a significant upgrade in the sequel 3 years later, making it look more like a handheld military walkie-talkie, and now with an analog video transmission of the receiver's face. Then finally, the third game, Metal Gear Solid. The big jump into 3D polygons, and it's still considered one of the greatest games ever made. I remember playing it back then for the first time, and it was truly a video game and cinematic experience unlike anything else at that time. And there are many long videos dedicated to just how special this game is, so I would recommend you watch those videos if you aren't familiar with the game. But oddly enough, the codec in Metal Gear Solid is not directly shown on screen. We see the device as a frequency tuner, audio transmission, with some sort of video screen, but it was always left up to our imagination as to what this great game prop actually looked like. Well, then that's my mission, to bring this codec into the real world. And I'll start by looking through the 1980s electronic devices for inspiration, and I'll see what gave those electronics their recognizable style. So, how difficult could this be? All I have to do is find a mini walkie-talkie to repurpose. I'll use a tiny microcontroller that I write all the programming code for, that hopefully displays on screen at a reasonable frame rate. I'll use components like a potentiometer to switch between different pages. I'll use infrared emitter and receiver for wireless transmission at the press of a button, a 3-axis gyroscope accelerometer for motion control, and then I'll CNC my own custom designed circuit boards to solder and pack everything into a small 3D modeled and 3D printed container. So yeah, then that's it, and then you have it. So let's just get started. I spent many days 3D modeling my own inspired design, thinking of my own look and style that I wanted, but I have to keep in mind the electronic components that I'll be using. And I want this to be as small and compact as possible. There's going to be no wasted space. And I went through many 3D printed test prints, and I decided to print one textured navy blue, and the other a smooth military green. And the game has chaff grenades that temporarily disable any electronic devices in the area by releasing a cloud of small metal fragments into the air. So I want to make my own wireless jamming device with a protected red button, something you might see in a 1980s action movie. And the Bamboo P1S allows me to print multiple colors, which is great for adding those small details and the numbers to the buttons. And I want several push buttons on the front, similar to what I saw in the references, all with that satisfying click sound when pressed. So my display screen doesn't fit the model, but after a few modifications, it's now a perfect pressure fit. Nice. I'll be using the MPU 6050 component, which is capable of reading changes in motion when programmed correctly. And we cannot see infrared light with our eyes, but a camera can see it as shown here. And this is similar to how a TV remote communicates with the TV. And I found the walkie-talkie that I want for a low price. And I'll admit, it actually was a lot of fun to assemble, but how does it sound?
Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. Over.
I think I can work with the size of this board, and I'm going to salvage some of these large components since they fit the theme. And there has to be something better than these tiny mics that it came with. So I removed it and I soldered on something better. I'll test it soon, but I've got other problems. The mini microcontroller only has 264 kilobytes of SRAM, so I have to be very creative with all of my graphics and how I store and draw them. For instance, here I saved out only the details to overlay onto a flat color, and instead of saving multiple noise textures, I can save just a few different thin strips to randomly display creating noise. I used a breadboard for quick testing to make sure the circuit is working before seeing if it fits in the 3D printed model. So I worked really hard to draw and design the circuitry, and I'm going to prepare the schematic to be drilled on my CNC machine, which I use to drill the holes, carve the traces, and then cut out the final board. I noticed my first attempt was not going to work. It was all way too thick and it didn't fit inside the small case, so I had to rethink. What if I solder the microcontroller directly to the display pins? That can remove the board, and I can redesign an even smaller PCB, which helps flatten the layout and now fits perfectly into the case. And I thought of an easy and creative solution to power all of this. I'm going to use a rechargeable 9-volt battery. So I can charge it with the USB, it has its own charging indicator light, and it has many built-in safety features. I can then step down the 9 to 5 volts to power everything. So I made sure it's safe by checking the heat distribution, which looked pretty normal for a regulator. I hot glued components securely in place so there's no shifting or moving around. I used electrical tape and liquid tape to really help hold and protect the circuits. But oh yeah, back to the question, how does it sound with a new microphone?
Yes, okay. This microphone, it's like 10 times better. Let's go with this. Over.
I'll seal it with screws to make it easier to reopen if I ever need to. And I had to do everything all over again for the green codec, which might have turned out even better than the blue. I guess I get better with practice. And I can't believe I made this mistake, but hey, do you know what else puts off infrared light? The sun. I can't have the sun jamming my device all the time. I added a blink to the IR transmitter and reprogrammed the receiver to read in that delay. Good thing the USB is still accessible to reprogram. And that definitely wasn't the only mistake. Here's just a few more. There were printing errors, cutting accidents, programming issues, parts that didn't fit, goop that had to be removed to resolder components. And at one point, the program didn't even load on the screen. Oh, and one push button happened to be a fraction of a millimeter smaller, so it didn't actually click. And I'm glad I noticed that before it was too late and glued everything together. So there were many failed attempts and misprints, but hey, it's all part of the process, and now I have my goal, an actual working codec.
Hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Over.
I honestly can't believe it works. I feel like I brought this into existence with sheer willpower, but it was totally worth it and really a dream come true.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Let's hang out again sometime. See you next time. Over.